Welcome back. Okay, we're going to take a look at the Edmonton Oilers today. That's right. We're going to take a look at the Oilers and start with the Canadian team this morning. I'm going to be doing two today. So over their last three seasons, well, it was a mess and then it wasn't, right? 78 points in 2017-2018, 79 points the year after, and the year that we completed eventually, they end up with 96 points prorated over 82 games. They didn't play 82 games, but 96 points is a huge improvement. So the team definitely made some strides. The question becomes one of, can they maintain it? And this was a problem they had after 2017. Remember, they were in the playoffs in 2017. And the funny thing with that was, in 2017, I remember Oilers fans and Leafs fans, the big debate being, well, which one of us wins the Cup first and which one of us wins the Cup the most? It hasn't happened yet. So maybe win that first one, and then we can talk. Now, there are reasons for excitement in Edmonton, and when you look at the players that have left, they didn't really lose anything they couldn't replace. Riley Sheahan was out. I think he did a decent enough job, but he's replaced. Green played one game, and then, of course, he didn't return for the return, and he retired, and that's that. Athanasiou doesn't stay either, so maybe next time around, Ken Holland shouldn't be looking at guys from Detroit. Maybe. And of course, Athanasiou, at the time I'm recording this, is still a UFA. And of course, Matthew Benning has moved on as well. But the Oilers, well, they've made some additions, and they've changed things around. So we'll go to the big ads first. Turris, Cahoon, and Barrie. And the interesting thing is, all three of those guys probably didn't score as many points last year as they should have. And so the good news is they're all due for bounce-back seasons, and they're due for those bounce-back seasons for the Oilers, a team that has no problem putting the puck in the net on most occasions. Although when you get to the average, they're kind of average. So the Hockey News has them 12th in the power rankings out of 31 teams. Sports Forecaster has them finishing third in the Pacific, which of course is not the division they're in. I have them finishing second in the Canadian division. So yes, I did move teams around a little bit when I was trying to figure out, okay, for the official previews, where am I going to put them? I put the Oilers second behind Toronto. So, and it's going to be close. But that might be the most fun feud to watch happen, is the one between Oilers and Leafs. That might be the rivalry I am really looking forward to the most. Because I honestly think that between the players on those teams and the fans of those teams, there'll be a lot of hate by the end of the year. A lot. I'm here for it. Now, in terms of players that I thought scored at too low a rate last year, Barrie stands out for me with Toronto. It just didn't work, and it's not the points. He had 39 points in 70 games. It's the 5 goals that stands out to me. I would expect Barrie over 56 games. He may be able to reach double-digit goals in Edmonton. Playing with the players he's with, getting the opportunities he may get, he may be able to do that. But 5 goals, 34 assists, 39 points. Respectable, but I think Barrie's capable of more. Puljujarvi I have on the board because, of course, he scored no points because he stayed in Europe all year. Coming back to Edmonton, the funny thing is, I keep seeing, well, he'll be on the third line. I would think that for Puljujarvi, he'd consider the season a failure if he's not in the top 6. And I think we'll see a lot more fight from him. I think he's going to want to prove, hey, I belong in a top 6 spot in the NHL. There's a lot of pride on the line right now for Jesse Puljujarvi. So watch and see what he does. I think it could be impressive. And then Kyle Turris, 9 goals, 22 assists, 31 points in 62 games with Nashville. It never fit with Nashville. I love Turris. He was one of my favorite Senators. I remember when the Senators traded him, I was like, not Turris. Oh, man. And he was. And I understand the Senators wouldn't pay him the money he wanted. And then Nashville paid him the money he wanted, kind of. At the time it was said that he took less money from Nashville than he was asking for from Ottawa for tax reasons, that he wouldn't have to pay as much taxes playing in Nashville. Now he's in Edmonton. But I think Turris still has the opportunity for a bounce back. I think he's still young enough for a bounce back. So we'll see what happens. To me, the rookie to watch is Evan Bouchard. We will talk about their blue line, and that's part of the reason why I think games between them and Toronto could be great. Every game between Toronto and Edmonton could be 6-5, 7-6, 8-7. Like, we could see absolute shooting galleries out there when you have Matthews and McDavid against each other, and Tavares and Draisaitl against each other. This could be a lot of scoring. And so Evan Bouchard, if he comes in and if he plays well at both ends of the rink, That would be good. And Bouchard is reportedly working on the defensive aspect of his game, which reportedly is why Edmonton didn't rush him into the lineup. They wanted him to work on the defensive aspect and get that going. So if Bouchard is capable of stepping into a top six role and producing and holding his own at his end of the rink, that could be a huge addition for the Edmonton Oilers. Goals for 3.14 per game this year, which was 14th. So like I said, they could put the puck in the net, but they go through their dry spells as well. Goals against 3.03 per game, which was 15th. So they're right around middle of the pack on both. Power play, they're not middle of the pack there. 29.5% on the power play, which was first. You got to think that's going to come down, right? Or maybe not. I think back to the Oilers in the 80s. Didn't come down then. But what's interesting, too, is their penalty kill was excellent. 84.42%, second overall. Now, the fact that this is first and second, and these are 14th and 15th, tells you 5-on-5, it was a different game. So for the Oilers, they need to improve that 5-on-5 game, and if they can do that while they keep their special teams where they were last season, this is a team that can easily finish first in the Canadian division. Absolutely. So again, the big ads, I didn't mention Cahoon and the guys who were too low because I felt Puljujarvi belongs in there instead because he didn't score anything in the NHL last year. Now the core six. Nugent Hopkins is not the core six for me because I think Yamamoto is going to be a dynamic forward for a long time with the Oilers. I think that, it's great with Nuge, but I'm not going to push out McDavid, obviously, or Draisaitl. And to me, Yamamoto proved last year in his call-up and in those games he played, this is going to be that winger that they've needed. And Nugent Hopkins has been great at that role, but ideally I'd like to see him in the middle. Ideally, I'd like to see Nugent Hopkins down the middle because it is center depth that makes a big difference when it comes to playoff time. And then on the blue line, I went with Nurse and Bear because they're young, they are the future of that blue line, and I think Darnell Nurse is a monster. I think he's perfectly capable. And then in goal, this is where it gets veteran. They have two veterans right now in net. Koskinen's older than I think he is half the time. Look at him, I think he's 32. And every time I think, well, he's probably like, what, 28, 20? Oh, he's 32. So what you see is what you get with both Koskinen and obviously Mike Smith, right? And I guess Ilya Konovalov, who is 22 years of age, is the most likely to be the future in net. The most likely to end up being the Oilers goaltender. Makes some sense, right? We have a lot of Russian goalies in the league, and young Russian goalies at that. And so maybe that's the Oilers' plan as well. I'm not sure what year he's going to be coming over. I'm not sure what the plan's going to be with him. But he is, I think the Hockey News had him 9th on their prospect list, and Sports Forecaster had him 3rd on the Oilers' prospect list. So there seems to be a bit of a divergence there. And there may be a stopgap in there. Maybe Skinner's going to be a stopgap. But in terms of that dreaded goalie of the future tag, I do wonder if the Oilers next season are going to be looking at maybe just adding a brand new starter. So look at the UFAs for next year and try to figure out who might be a good fit for Edmonton. Because Mike Smith they circled back on, and I think it was because they got priced out on Braden Holtby. At least that's what I think happened. And of course Markstrom. Markstrom ends up in Calgary. Dave Tippett is the coach, and I think that's a big part of the reason why their penalty killing was very good. I'm always surprised, though, with Tippett that the defensive aspect of teams that he's on isn't necessarily better than where it ends up, because Tippett was a really, really good defensive forward. And so if there's anybody who can coach defense, it should be Dave Tippett. So look for their goals against to get better this year. Look for their defensive numbers to get better, and that's impressive considering their penalty kill was already second last year. Of course, Ken Holland is GM, probably the most highly respected GM this team's had since, what, Glenn Sather? I'll say Glenn Sather. And yet, of course, Sather went to the Rangers after infamously saying, well, if I had the Rangers money, I could build a champion, and then he didn't. But, Ken Holland, of course, with his cup rings from Detroit, he's trying to bring one to Edmonton. Be nice to see it happen. I'd like to see a Stanley Cup in Canada, not just in a display case, but actually one in Canada by a Canadian team. I know they get one in Canada. Technically, it was one in Canada this year by Tampa. And it's happened twice where the New York Islanders celebrated their Stanley Cup win in Vancouver, and then Boston celebrated their Stanley Cup win in Vancouver. Be nice to see if Vancouver actually won a Stanley Cup, and I know I can't finish that thought either. But Edmonton, maybe. Toronto, maybe. Montreal, even, maybe. Because Montreal has won Stanley Cups when they weren't supposed to as well. Now, the glass half full crowd for the Oilers should be pretty massive. Because you have that 1-2 punch down the middle, which is intimidating. Oh, you shut down McDavid? Cool, here comes the Draisaitl line. And the big argument against the Draisaitl-McDavid combination in years previous was they were on the same line. And last year, Draisaitl showed he could run his own line, which I'd always known he could. So Draisaitl now is a legit number 2 center behind McDavid. And what a number 2 center when he won the Art Ross and the Hart Trophy. So it is that 1-2 punch they have, which is reminiscent of Crosby and Malkin in Pittsburgh, just minus the cup rings. I know, minus the cup rings. But you get the feeling that if they can put the proper team around those two guys, that it's only a matter of time. Now, the added depth is also a reason to be excited about this season. I think that the additions are really quite smart additions as well. And then you got to figure that maybe Bouchard's the one rookie that ends up making it into the lineup, and after that, you're good. I guess Puljujarvi can almost be considered a rookie considering he doesn't have that many games in the NHL, and now he's spent another year in Europe, but it's not really. But we'll see. The glass half empty crowd will likely come back to the fact that it's still the same goaltending. And that was a problem against Chicago in the play-in round, that their goaltending wasn't good enough. And they lost to a Chicago team that, hey, they should have beaten Chicago. That should have been a team that Edmonton should have beat. And I know Chicago had all that experience and the momentum, but Edmonton should have won that series. You look at the lineups, Edmonton, young, hungry team, and the goaltending that may very well have been the reason that they came up short against Chicago, it's still the same tandem. So, and with Koskinen not really showing that he's a number one overall option rather than a 1A, 1B, we'll see how things go for them this year. And if Smith can have another, solid season. But yeah, we'll see what happens. The next big hype, I have Dylan Holloway as the next big hype. And it's tough because with the Oilers, prospects are always going to get a lot of hype. So I thought about putting Broberg on the board, and I thought, no, I'll go with Dylan Holloway. Because once we're done the World Juniors, it's possible that Dylan Holloway will be getting a lot of attention. So I'll go with him. When you look at the record month to month, they were pretty consistent. They had one bad month. They were 9-4-1 in October, 7-5-2 in November, 5-8-1 in December. That was their bad month. And then they were 6-1-2 in January, 7-5-2 in February, and 3-2-1 in March. So they stumbled a little bit in the last couple of months, but they still managed to be above 500. They end up 10-7-3 over February and January. And, of course, then they lost the play-in round. So it's a matter of having that consistency, which the play-in kind of showed that they're still struggling with. But I do think they'll get there. Now, when you look at the record against Canadian teams last year, against Calgary, they were 1-2-1. Against Montreal, they were 2-0. Against Ottawa, they lost the one game they played against Ottawa. I have a feeling when I get to Ottawa, their record against Canadian teams wasn't too shabby. Against Toronto, they were 1-1. Against Vancouver, 2-2. And against Winnipeg, 1-1-1. So, the total versus teams in the Canadian division from last year was 7-7-2. And, of course, that would have to be improved upon if they're going to finish in the top 4 out of 7, if that's what it takes to make the playoffs. We don't know how the playoffs are going to work. Don't have any idea. We'll see when that's announced, how that's going to work. No, I'm not redoing all the previews when we find out either. So, Edmonton is going to be one of those teams that's very interesting to watch. And again, the Canadian division is going to be a dogfight. It is going to be really hard to figure out, okay, so how's this team going to finish? And again, I have them second in the Canadian division. I've gone back and forth on it. I could see them as high as first. I could see them as low as sixth, depending on how things turn out. Because there's a lot of good teams in the Canadian division, and I'm not sure that there's an elite level team. I think there's just probably 6 really good teams. And if Ottawa has a good record against the other Canadian teams, there might be 7. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And yes, I'm wearing this because it's not retro, it's not reverse. I don't have the reverse retro of Edmonton yet. And this was always a jersey that I liked to theirs. And I know there's other fans that don't, but I always liked it. This was probably my favorite design they had. Just why they got rid of it. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and I will talk to you again soon.